Welcome. Let's get to the news about what's happening around the world. Thank you for joining us. We are live. Today is March 2nd, the first broadcast of the day, and let's go over the details of what's happening around the world. Let's start with what's happening at the White House. What is the White House saying, and what is the Pentagon saying as well? Given all the situations happening right now, what are their plans, at least the ones that can be made public? Let's get into the details. Thank you very much for joining us. Are you joining the live stream? Well, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and thank you for sharing. A big greeting to the whole community, and in just a moment, we'll be happy to read your comments. Thank you for joining us. Let's go then. Let's get to the information. And happy start of the week, by the way. Happy start of the week, the first Monday of March in this 2026. Great, a big greeting. Let's get to the details. We start with this image, with this dubbing we've done of Donald Trump himself. Let's see what he says.
He imposes on the American people, and in fact, he is a threat. We have by far the strongest and most powerful army in the world, and we will prevail easily. We are already substantially ahead of our projected timeline, but whatever the time is, it's fine. Whatever is necessary, we will always do it, and we have done so from the beginning. We projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have the capacity to go far beyond that. We will do it, whatever it is. Someone said today, they said, oh, well, the president wants to do it very quickly. After that, he'll get bored. I'm not getting bored. There's nothing boring about this. Do you agree with that, Pete? I don't think there's anything general. I think there's nothing boring about it. Someone in the media said they thought I would get bored after a week or two. No, we don't get bored. I never get bored. I wouldn't be standing here right now, I guarantee you, to go through what I had to go through. Thank you.
Well, that also leads to the following.
Substantially ahead in our time projections. But whenever it happens, it's fine. Whatever it is, thank you.
Well, that's part of the same thing he said. Okay, let's go to the image of Pete Hesed, which says the following. Thank you.
The American people also want to know why they are sending their men and women to war. Is there concern that this could turn into a longer war? A question for the president when you're finished. Thank you.
I can't hear my comments. I mean, we're making sure the mission is accomplished. But we are very clear, just as President Lopez Obrador has been, unlike other presidents, about the senseless policies of the past that recklessly dragged us into situations that weren't linked to clear and real objectives, right? So we know, we have plans, we have generals, we have presidents, we have commanders, CENTCOM commanders, Admiral Cooper, commanders.
Admiral Cooper also says, let's move on to the next one. That's the same reaction that Pete Hesed has. Let's also review Macron's comments as he responds to. Let's see what happened there. Let's take a look. Here we go. Well, thank you very much for joining us. That's great. Let's go with what Macron says. Let's get into the details.
A firm decision to formally order a significant and strategic increase in the total number of nuclear warheads within our national defense arsenal, to definitively dispel any kind of doubt or international speculation about our capability. We will no longer communicate the figures regarding our nuclear arsenal, unlike what was done before. Therefore, to be free, we must be feared, and to be feared, we have to be powerful, so our arsenal reflects that approach. But to be powerful, and this is the second part of my speech, we have to be united. And I am going to talk about Europe.
I'm going to talk, but he's already bringing up other topics. But the firm decision, he says, the firm decision to have, let's go over here, let's go over here, there it is. The firm decision to have, he says. Well, more nuclear weapons, not giving information about how many weapons they have. And, well, we start to enter a very strange world where we're not even going to see anymore. How many weapons do countries have? For example, China now, France neither, no. And besides the increase in the arsenal, that's also, well, obviously it's tremendous. But what does Starmer say over there in the United Kingdom? Let's listen to what he says.
It's clear that the use of the British bases is limited to the agreed defensive purposes. We are not joining the offensive attacks by the United States and Israel. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and the protection of British lives. This is in accordance with international law, and we have prepared a summary of our legal advice that sets this out clearly. We will keep the decision under review.
We will maintain it. Well, the point is that it clarifies the part about the management of the bases. I mean, they're not going to get involved in the conflict, but it does say that they will get involved. I mean, that the bases will be used, it says. Regarding defensive matters, it also provides a bit of reassurance in that sense. Due to internal pressure from the United Kingdom, they avoided involvement in the conflict. That's also a very interesting topic. Let's dive into more details, since so far I've only shown parts of what Trump and Pete Hegseth say. But let's go into detail. Let's look at what's happening. What happened with those planes that went down in Kuwait? From fire? My friend, how did this situation happen? Have the pilots survived? Is there an attack on refineries? At least there is already a large refinery affected inside Saudi Arabia. This has already raised oil prices, and there are reactions obviously in the markets. But for example, the S&P 500, well, as if nothing happened, the Nasdaq is going up. In fact, it did. It's doing quite well right now. Tech stocks are doing very well. We know that, well, not everything is dark or negative because of the conflict, but there are parts and there are tremendous challenges. Obviously, above all, the part about the conflict is the most serious. And we're going to look at some images, for example, what we're seeing here. According to reports, there is an attack on a refinery. Let's look at the details, what is known about this refinery. Right now, we'll see a few more images of what's happening in that regard and also what's happening inside Iran. Because one of the most striking things that Burgess says is the part where he says thank you. He thinks that what he's experiencing now is just the tip of the iceberg, meaning the hardest part is yet to come. Donald Trump said the same thing in part of the conversation, basically that the strongest attacks haven't started yet but will in the coming days. So what we're seeing right now is that on day one, they took out the leaders, which obviously caught my attention. Let's see what's happening first in Iran. And right now, let's see what the United States military leaders are saying, what their objectives are. All of that is also quite important. But let's start with this part. Looking at these images, let's see. According to what's shown by War Monitor, they show, well, this image, which, well, Iran would be in up to now. The bombing that happened a few moments ago is the worst they've had. No, in this war, in Iran's history, there hasn't been a bombing like the one that's happening right now. Today. So what's happening is, well, a conflict that's spreading into, well, a war that seems like it's going to have, well, many consequences. We don't know to what extent on a global level, but it does at least give us an idea. We're going to talk about that part in a moment, but look, the Pentagon's military chiefs are talking about combat operations. They're coming on a large scale. And he anticipated that the effort will be tough and sustained. Donald Trump also made another point, he says. The offensive could last 4 weeks or more, he says. The secretary. Pete Hegseth avoided giving timelines. He didn't mention dates, but also, well, it goes like this. In the same way, he insisted that Trump will define the duration, that he, Donald Trump, will be the one to decide when. The objectives are already being met. The type of escalation and the type of exit, the timing could be moved up or it could also be delayed, Hegseth insisted. The Secretary of War listed offensive missiles as a focus. The production of missiles is going to be destroyed. In other words, all the factories or areas where anything related to missiles is being made will be destroyed. The entire issue of Iran's navy and security infrastructure is on the red line, and they could also be destroyed. Kane also confirmed that the United States would be increasing its forces in the Middle East and that they will add more fighter jets to support operations. The military commanders showed that they anticipate additional losses. So, what Trump was saying yesterday, I mean, logically it's a conflict and losses will also increase, both material and human. Right now, we're going to look at the satellite image published by Planet, which was confirmed by the New York Times and other media outlets. You can see there's an attack on one of the United States bases and it's intense. Why? Because you can see that a good part of the base disappears, that they had been evacuated. The point is that the infrastructure part at least is no longer there. So yes, it's an issue that is obviously going to take a long time. It was said that this is not a regime change war, but at the same time he concluded the regime did change, he says, and he pushed the idea that the Iranian people should take advantage of the moment. And that's what has been emphasized lately, that this is just beginning and that it's the people themselves who have to seek that change. I mean, let's see. Most likely we're not. Most likely, I insist, we don't know. It's a war, but probably there won't be troops on the ground. I mean, inside, troops entering. That's the part that probably won't happen. Thank you. There are also poisonous details when it comes to misinformation, which we have to be careful about. And I say poisonous because they have an intention. Toxic, let's say, not in the information itself, but to make it seem like some Middle Eastern countries are not, let's say, willing to participate in the operation. I mean, they're not in agreement. But this has been disproven, at least up until now. There is no dissatisfaction from these countries, on the contrary. Rather, we should remember what the younger brother of the people, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, said, who is the leader, the one who runs the country. His father, the king, is there, but he's very old, so the Crown Prince actually runs things. So, the younger son, the younger brother of the one in charge, is the Secretary of Defense. You know how it is, it's a kingdom, and he went to Washington before the conflict. We must remember that Saudi Arabia told them to carry out the operation as requested. I mean, if the conflict was going to happen because the Iranian regime was weak, then they had to do it right away, right? Was there another opportunity then or not? From that point on, it was very clear what would follow because the Arab countries had normally been against this conflict. If you notice, up until now, even now, despite the fact that they've attacked everyone except Oman, but all the others in the area have been attacked. Today it came out, later on we'll see what was said. Al-Sisi, Egypt's president, who was previously silent, is now criticizing Iran and saying, wait a minute, you're going too far with the attacks you're launching against friendly countries, partner countries, so to speak, of Egypt. And is Egypt upset? But if you notice, there aren't any operations. I mean, there aren't any military operations at this moment yet. There is openness. They are already sharing intelligence with the United States. I mean, the airspace is already open for the United States to operate as they wish. So all of that is already happening. But they are not operating strongly because they know there is a risk to tourism, there is a risk to security. They are very close, they're too close, and they don't want Iran to escalate things against them by sending troops or sending something, because then it would be more likely that something could happen. So they're holding back a little, but they're already tense. And what happened today? I think it's going to set a different precedent because an attack on a refinery is something else. We'll discuss that soon, as this is leading somewhere and may take an important turn. First, let's review the details we know so far. CENTCOM's Central Command confirmed today, just a few moments ago, this Monday, the death of 4 United States soldiers after an attack attributed to Iran. That was an attack that hit Kuwait and no. Initially, 3 deaths were reported. Hours later, CENTCOM reported that there was a 4th soldier who was seriously injured and died from his wounds. The incident happened then during this Epic Fury operation, described as a joint operation with Israel against Iran. Basically, as we already know, Another important point is that Larijani would actually be, right now we're going to talk about who this individual is, because this individual, Larijani, is basically the person behind the power. Right now he's the puppet, but he's really not an important figure. Larijani would be, in any case, the figure who might be more important when it comes to decision making. This individual, let's see if we can put him here on the screen. This individual right here, the photo is very large, but you get the idea. It's this individual. What does Larijani say? Let's get into the details. Larijani, this person who is here at this point, claims and denies any negotiation. I mean, what he's saying is that there won't be any last night. I'm saying this because last night there was information from the Iranians saying, okay, we want to negotiate. That's actually how we ended the live broadcast. The night felt strange to us, and we mentioned it then. They'll likely say, we want to negotiate. Then the next day, we don't want negotiation. That's how they are, always changing. Larijani denied any negotiations. Iran launched a series of attacks, he says, and we will not negotiate with the United States. This has been attributed to the Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, Iranian Ali Larijani. The statement came after Donald Trump publicly said yesterday. Trump said they want to negotiate. Well, they say they don't want to negotiate. There were also reports from within Iran that supposedly they want to negotiate. Well, they say they don't. They won't negotiate. That's part of the comment. And here it is. Look, this is the image of the three who are really like in charge. Let's say no. Let's see if we can put it on the screen. There it is. So these are the three people. Just make the photo smaller. That's all. Those are the three who are in control right now. It's a government of three where the one in the middle is the president, but he's the one with the least power. See? Who are they, right? Are you sure they report? Based on that country's constitution, they're forming a sort of government. Gobierno. Let's say together president, head of the judicial branch, and the clerical prosecutor's office. We're not going to say that they're, well, giving or generating. Now, these three figures are important, but Larijani is the operator, the one we're talking about right now. So Larijani as the operator. He probably has much more influence than, for example, Masoud Eskian, or also much more than Gholam Hossein, the head of the judiciary. Yes. These figures, especially this man Gholam, he is the person who has been ordering the elimination and execution of many of the protesters from the same community as me. And isn't Al-Herasi, who is the next Ayatollah, there? Right now, he's deeply involved in the succession issue, which in fact should be announced today, about who will be the new supreme leader. He is the main clerical figure. So yes, he has a lot of power. He does have influence, but probably not so much in day-to-day operations. I mean, he has influence in general, but when it comes to making decisions like attacking here or attacking there, probably not so much yet. Larijani is probably the one who is emerging. He is the operator in the absence of Khamenei. Larijani, the one I was telling you about. Right now, he has a very, very long track record within the system. He knows how the other factions work. He knows how to talk to them. And probably, he's the one who said they won't negotiate since he decides. Masoud Pezeshkiani, the president, could agree to negotiate, but it won't happen unless Larijani allows it. He's a tough character. He's someone who operates and is probably the one who might have riskier plans. And he's probably a target of the United States, and he probably will be a target of the United States. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they end up eliminating him, as they've been operating against these figures. Meanwhile, this image is shown. Let's see if we can put it here. This image, let's see, there it is. It's this image. This would be a destroyer. It would be launching guided missiles, Alec class. It has been firing several types. The 109 Tomahawk Alec missiles have also been launched. Burkle, United States ship Frank Peterson, guided missile destroyer 121, and attacks also with the famous Tomahawk. That's what has been operated with this one. I haven't heard it. Well, there are some of the sounds of the conflict that's taking place right now. Another image that also draws attention is, I want you to listen to this. It's an attack that happened on an Iranian military area. Listen to the following. Oh. Take that, evil. I haven't seen anything like this. Well, I mean, for what's happening, it really surprises me. There are 3 of them there. You can't see them at first, but I'll show it here at the beginning. I mean, there are 3 Iranians sitting there. That's it. They duck down. And, well, you heard it talking. They weren't shouting or anything. You can tell they're watching how an area is being attacked and they're surprised. Let's see if you can catch it. Look, they're over there leaning against a car or something talking, and you think, is that bold? In fact, there's even an image of a person smoking a pipe or something like that on a rooftop with explosions in the background. And that's how it is. He doesn't even flinch. This one really has been surprising. I mean, there have been other images of fear, of panic, obviously, but relatively, people have been kind of calm, relatively. I insist, obviously, it's a conflict, but it's surprising, like for now, at least, it's clear to them that the attack, in theory, should only be against government areas, against military installations. And so far, more or less, the accuracy has been good. Yeah, from day one, there were already attacks and they had failures. And we already talked about this situation yesterday, which has also affected civilians. But so far, the situation has been minimal, unfortunately, as always. But yes, minimal. This was also shown, this is from the United States side, right? The United States 5th Fleet headquarters, which shows this image. There's thick black smoke coming out from what would be the base. Naval Support Activity Bahrain houses the United States 5th Fleet headquarters. After what is reported to be a ballistic missile and drone attack, part of an attack by Iran. This too, well, it's a topic that will have to be narrated and understood as the situation unfolds, right? Let's also talk about what happened in Kuwait, because there was a shoot down, my friend. They will possibly fire several people there because it is a mistake that could have been avoided. Let's go into the details of what happened. Well, I'm sure they're reporting. There are already some images out there. Look, that's the moment when the pilot is rescued, one of the pilots. Several United States fighter jets were already shot down by Kuwait. Friendly fire. It's not the first time these kinds of mistakes happen. I'm sure they'll report it. Kuwait reportedly shot down 3 United States fighter jets by mistake. All the planes were destroyed. Every plane, every F-15, no, the pilots, yes, all 6 pilots of the planes were rescued. At first, there were risks in the sense that, well, it's a war, obviously, but I mean, there were risks. When it comes to landing with parachutes, those who are coming down, right? The pilots eject and fall. And there was risk because the population thought they were Iranians, that they were Iranian planes. Obviously, in war, you can't tell who's who. So the people went, they were already against them. Immediately, the Kuwaiti forces arrived and told them, calm down, these are Americans, and things settled down. We have to remember that Kuwait already has its history with Iran, with Iraq, etc. or that, well, there was anger because they thought they were from Iran, right? So there are several details here. Let's see. In the middle of a very intense situation in the Middle East, Kuwait accidentally shot down 3 United States F-15 Strike Eagle planes. The aircraft were participating in Operation Epic Fury. There's an image of the pilot over there. I don't know exactly how appropriate it is. I mean, him walking out on his own, but I don't know how right it is to show the image of people right now, especially their faces. No, so let's wait first until it's confirmed that it's really him, right? And to begin with, I imagine there will be certain restrictions on showing certain faces, I think. So we'll be paying close attention to that, especially because of the announcements made yesterday about not sharing certain information, especially when you can see where the defense systems are being launched from, because that information obviously can also influence where attacks happen. What really stands out is what the New York Times and Planet Labs published today. In this image, you can see the United States bases, the before and after. This, well, thanks to satellites, you can start to see or get an idea of how the attacks will go. Well, obviously they involve significant risks, right? Significant. I mean, obviously, yes. As stated earlier, this isn't Venezuela in the sense that, well, it's a country that has spent decades preparing for conflict, and, well, it's a country that has gotten used to conflict through wars. Proxies, according to what it shows. Planet Labs and also Airbus Defense and Space analyzed with the New York Times the extensive damage to Bahrain's naval support activity. This is the base I was showing you earlier where smoke was coming out. It's the headquarters of the United States Navy's 5th Fleet in Bahrain, which may have been affected. There you can even see a what's it called? A baseball field they have there for the soldiers to relax. And then there are these spheres that we're seeing in the images above. They're like those spheres, which are usually intelligence centers. And then there are some hangars at the bottom. Also, well, destroyed? Hey, whether there were people there or not, well, they're talking about 4 people dead, right? Well, the deaths were in Kuwait, not in Bahrain. So in Bahrain, it's not exactly clear if there were any casualties or not. Material losses, there clearly were, obviously. That's also important to consider, right? And, well, let's move on to other matters. Let's move on to other points also important within all this back and forth. To begin, well, with this image, let's take a look at Al-Sisi, the president of Egypt, telling us the following.
Let's listen to Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Jordan at the AMIAS. First,
he says, despite all the reasons that have been going on because of this conflict, it's a mistake, he says. It was a serious mistake that Iran made by attacking its neighboring countries. Does he look shocked? He's not usually that type of, or he's not a leader who speaks the way he's speaking right now. He looks different. He looks, well, they say shocked because the Gulf countries have been attacked, he says. Despite all the reasons, he says, that the Iranians may think they have, this should not have been done that way, he says. Egypt has not been attacked. Egypt has not entered into conflict so far. And meanwhile, what is starting to be observed is that there is indeed an alert in Lebanon. But it seems that Iran's focus is shifting towards Lebanon. Why? Because Hezbollah is in Lebanon, because there are Americans in Lebanon, and because Lebanon is also right up north, next to Israel. These warnings have been heard. Let's see if you can catch it. Listen to what has been warned. This is at the United States Embassy in Auker, Lebanon, according to reports. Let's listen. It says, stay away from the windows, take cover, stay put, and wait for instructions, it says. That's what you hear on the loudspeakers at the United States Embassy in Okar, Lebanon, instructing the staff to take cover, stay away from the windows, and wait for instructions. It's good what people living nearby in the area have been showing on social media. We need to stay alert for more details. There are still some facts that need to be confirmed about what's happening in Lebanon. So we'll also be talking about them later, right? But yes, there is movement there too. There are things happening, and we'll go into more detail about this, right? In the meantime, let's move on to other matters. But let me just show you what they are, like the collectives in Venezuela, but the Iranian version. Take a look at this. What we're seeing, those people up there, that group, those are the Basij. These kinds of groups, according to reports, are similar to the collectives. They go armed, their bases have been destroyed, and these collectives have their bases in different parts of Iran. They are the ones who have been shooting at these young people who have been protesting against the Ayatollah. The Basij are also young people, and many of them are part of the Basij part of this group because they are given scholarships. Many of them don't want to shoot at the young people, and they don't do it, and they've resigned, etc. But just resigning also means losing their scholarship, losing their little bit of money. So there are some who do it anyway, despite they've been seen in various places, but have few options since the bases were destroyed. So they're wandering around the Iranian cities, who knows with what intention. I can't see if they're carrying weapons. At least I don't know if you can tell, but I can't see if they're carrying weapons. A lot of people are recording them. What really catches my attention is that a lot of people are recording them. I imagine they want to keep a record. So what's going on with those groups? I can't see that they have anything because sometimes it's very obvious when they're carrying long guns and things like that. But at least here you can't really see clearly. Almost all of them go in pairs, although some do go alone, and they're all dressed in black on little motorcycles. It's not like the Uber Eats ones, not like that, or small motorcycles like those. But anyway, that's also a big issue. Let's move on to other important topics related to this. The price of gas and oil is going up. The price of gas, for example, in Europe went up by 40%, and oil has gone up by about 8%. It wasn't so much the oil, also because Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries announced that it will produce more oil, which helps balance the price. They produce more oil. But obviously, if the oil comes out of the Strait of Hormuz, and that's the problem, right? That, there might possibly be a closure of the Strait of Hormuz. It's a very high probability, isn't it? The oil-producing countries operate in this area. This is where production occurs in the Persian Gulf. So, if they suddenly close the Strait of Hormuz, there's no way to get the oil out, at least not cheaply, from here, from this area. There are plans to build pipelines that will go through Jordan, even through Israel, to reach Europe, and that's going to change things. It's a history of energy and also a history of energy security for Europe. In the future, possibly, but for that Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel would have to come to an agreement. That's for the future. In fact, that's what was going to happen before the war on October 7th with Gaza. Yes, and I mentioned it here at the time, I find it very suspicious. It seems to me that the one who benefited most from this decision was Iran, right? Because Iran didn't want that deal, didn't want Saudi Arabia to have the deal with Israel and Jordan to transport large quantities of oil to Europe in a super cheap way. And the direct products, not even by ship now, or passing through the Mediterranean and reaching Europe. So that was obviously going to be very important, which didn't happen. By the way, but let's get into the details of what is known right now regarding the reactions of the markets. Why? These are signs that the conflict is going to drag on, but at the same time, there are also certain balances happening right now. Just look at how things are at the moment. Let's go. Let's first look at the weekly periods, but let's also look at the daily periods of oil. To begin with, oil, as I told you yesterday, went up, it jumped. This is the price here. On this side, it reached up to 80 something in Brent. This is Brent. Of course, there are different versions, but some went up a little more, some a little less, but more or less. They're between 5 and 8%. That's how much oil has gone up right now. Gold started to go up, but now it has started to go down. I mean, oil is not skyrocketing. I mean, it did shoot up. Yes, but look where it is right now. Yeah. It's around 2. I mean, it's already at 2.5. Let's say oil is already, gold is going down, so gold isn't either. The S&P 500, how is the S&P 500 doing? What's happening with the 500 most important companies in the United States? Well, take a look. This is a big jump that the S&P 500 had today. All of this happened today, Monday. Yes, in fact, the dollar. What's happening with the dollar? Wars. What do you think they do to the dollar? Well, it strengthens the dollar. This is the dollar today compared to the euro. A big jump for the dollar. Watch out for that, okay? Be cautious with the dollar. It can act as a safe haven. So, investments that see insecurity in some other sectors move to the dollar, and then the dollar goes up. There's demand for the dollar right now, and so the dollar goes up. There can be many factors, but the point is that the dollar goes up. Even here in Mexico, the dollar has been strong against the Mexican peso. Today, it wanted to go up, although right now it's already limited. The peso held on. The peso held on against the euro, for example, which didn't hold on as much. The Mexican peso is holding at 17.31. It did go up a little bit from Friday, which is this, to today, Monday. So it went up this little bit, maybe a very minimal amount. But it went up, and the Nasdaq, which is the tech stocks, also went up. It's the green line right here. It didn't shoot up too much, but the tech stocks did go up a bit. So it didn't go badly for them, even though people were saying that the Asian markets fell, and that's true. Here's this line. It's a drop in the Asian stock market that takes the first hit. Bitcoin went up. Not by much, but it had been on this yellow line. It was kind of at this level, and now it's gone. From around 69,000, hovering around 65,000 now, it's at 60. Well, actually, it even went down to 63,000. They're almost at 70,000 now, so is Bitcoin still a safe haven for a sector of finance? Where do they go, to Bitcoin, to gold? And in this case, investors are buying oil. That's also why the price is going up. So, watch out for that part too. Now, let's move on to other important matters. Just let me tell you, speaking of oil, that's what can cause more distrust. There's another oil tanker that was damaged in the Musandam Peninsula in Oman. The local maritime authority reports that there was an attack in strategic waters that caused injuries to 4 crew members. Their nationality is Indian, from Iran. As usual, it's another attack, this time on an oil tanker flying the flag of Palau, which is also under sanctions. Isn't that right? Well, be careful with that issue because it seems that attacks are happening in that regard. There's movement in that direction. By the way, let's move on to another important topic. There was speculation. They were showing images of attacks on Israel in which it was claimed that they had attacked Netanyahu's office. That report was not being confirmed. Some media outlets were already taking it as a fact. According to what Agencia EFE is reporting right now, the office of the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, denied that its headquarters was attacked by Iran on Monday, as was claimed in Iranian media and some other international outlets. This had been stated by the Revolutionary Guard, but they say it was completely false. It is actually very common that during conflicts, especially when there are attacks on Netanyahu, they take him onto a plane and he starts flying toward Greece. In this situation, some reports said it was happening while others disagreed. But what they do say is that the office, according to them, was not attacked. Yes, the sirens have gone off in the area several times, but that's normal when there are attacks from Iran, right? By the way, Greece has also been sending frigates and fighter jets to Cyprus. Yes, this has been happening since a British base was attacked with a drone. Yes, so I think Greece's reaction is also starting to be seen in other European countries. The Greek government announced today that it is sending 2 war frigates and 2 F-16 fighter jets to Cyprus to, as they say, contribute in possible ways to the defense of the island of Cyprus. Specifically, this is because of the attack that was carried out with a drone, a Shahed type, which went to attack. Let's look at the map, but notice where the attack took place. I mean, this is Iran. And the attack happened passing through Syria, passing through Iraq, towards Cyprus, towards a British base that is in Cyprus in the Mediterranean. By the way, right there it is. Well, a little further south in front of Israel, but let's say in this area, it should be around here. One of the aircraft carriers, the Harold Fort, yes, the largest aircraft carrier of the United States, is located around here. We've already seen how the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and now also Greece, Italy, which also says it is preparing a force for a possible rescue. In case there are Europeans or Italians in trouble, a force that could be activated. We see how Europe, little by little, as we will see, is going to start pointing towards Iran, especially considering that they, that is, the Europeans, would be among the main ones affected. In that Iran has ballistic missiles as it does, or that it possibly has atomic weapons. We know that the narrative of the Iranian regime is not just against Israel or against the United States, it's constantly against the West. So be careful with what's happening there, because we're watching how it's being done. A very interesting kind of alliance against Iran, an Iran that so far has not given in the sense that they say they are ready to keep attacking, and most likely their attacks will be through movements like Hezbollah itself. And pay attention to what one of the Ayatollahs said. There are several, but one of the Ayatollahs who sent a message. This is like an order. It's like a law they have there, in which they are told to carry out a series of actions, in other words, attacks. Not to, well, countries or interests of the United States. So obviously it's Israel, obviously, so this can also create security risks, terrorism risks. Because that's the way these kinds of people act. I mean, they usually attack in that way. That's pretty well known. So is this the order? And that's possibly a high-risk issue because there could be lone wolves, like what happened in Houston, like what happened in Cincinnati, for example. Right now, we're going to talk about that situation where they say it's very likely to be an attack, like what happened in in Austin, Texas. Let's go to other details. Right now, let's go to this case. She would be the wife of Aliyah Mainei. Yes, according to what is reported and confirmed by Iranian media. There were still doubts about whether she had died, though it was assumed she had, right? But, well, it's already confirmed. According to what the Iranian media themselves report, the death of Mausrek Kohasten Pagarstade, the wife of Eli Khamenei, would have been removed. She was in a coma. According to reports, she had injuries. She had serious injuries from Saturday's bombing. She is a 79-year-old woman who did not survive the injuries caused by the offensive. And, well, her death has already been confirmed, right? A daughter, a grandson, and other close relatives also died, which makes this a major incident for this religious leader. The Iranian Red Crescent has confirmed that so far 550 deaths have been counted in this attack, right? These are numbers that will surely be updated later on. So, well, that also draws attention, obviously, today. And let's move on to another topic as well. Maybe an even more serious one. But that's all. I mentioned to you a while ago that there was an image. This is it. Look, it's a person over there. Look, I don't know. It was just some random person, but they're smoking a cigarette, a pipe or something. I don't know. And in the background, there are explosions going off. Look, there's the explosion. And the person. But I'm mentioning it because it's something that's been noticed a lot, that a lot of the Iranian population has been very calm, in the sense that it seems like there isn't an overwhelming fear. Like sometimes people want to portray fear. I imagine it's more towards the Basij, towards the Revolutionary Guard, towards the political leaders who are the ones that are the targets of this conflict. And from the reports of Iranians living in Canada, living in Germany, from the reports of these Iranians, what they say is that their families in Iran are, let's say, happy that Ali Khamenei ended the way he did, and happy that it seems the operation is serious. No, obviously there will be other types of, let's say, society, right? There is a percentage that, depends on the government of Iran and depends on those from the Revolutionary Guard. And, I don't doubt that they might want something else, but that really stands out. The accuracy of upcoming operations will be very important. But the Israeli Minister of Foreign Affairs, Gideon Sa'ar, confirmed that the joint military operation with the United States against Iran does not have an end date. In other words, the same thing Trump said, 4 weeks or more, just like Keynes said. Peter Hesse didn't mention dates, he just echoed whatever Trump said. Period. So there isn't a schedule, just like the Israeli foreign minister says. At least there's no public schedule. Obviously about objectives, that a certain objective is met by a certain date. No, that's not going to happen. According to the official, the goal is to weaken the structure of Iranian power enough to bring about a regime change and to neutralize strategic threats against Israel. That's another objective. And their project is not just about supporting the United States, but about a mutual operation coordinated hand in hand with Washington. He confirmed that the bombings resulted in the death of the supreme leader. The central figure of this regime for more than 30 years confirmed what we had told you here yesterday. Of the 100,000 reservists who have been called up, and who will be positioned especially in the northern part, but they will be divided into many parts, some for the Navy, others for intelligence, and so on. The reservists will be assigned according to their characteristics, being placed at different points. Thousands of interceptions were also recorded in Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, and Jordan. This shows that there have actually been more attacks, maybe more than people think, but they've just been intercepted. When it comes to interceptions, some say there are thousands, others say there are hundreds, so we'll have to see what the real number is. No, because this is also a conflict. If we count drones as if they were missiles, I don't see how there could be thousands. Honestly, if we count the drones, it could be, because they're very cheap drones. And it could be that they're trying to launch a bunch and they're being intercepted. We'll have to wait for more details about how many have actually been fired. But the CIA, for example, has provided key intelligence, they say, to locate where the high-ranking officials are, where the meetings are held. That's how they've operated, and they've played an important role. Apparently, in this whole operation or operations, there is a risk. As always, like in any conflict, there is a risk of escalation. Why is there a percentage, I insist, in Iran, but that percentage that's, let's say, inside? Like the belief that Khamenei is a religious leader or was their religious leader, all these kinds of things. It's a percentage that might be 15-20%, but out of 90 million, 15 or 20% of 90 million creates a problem for you. And on top of that, add, let's say, another 15 or 20%. It's not clear. Iraqis who are also supporting or who support these guys. So if you add up two countries that if they manage to coordinate enough, they can be a risk. Was it? So here the strategy has been in order not to have to send in troops to go and put pressure on all the leaders. And more leaders emerge, and surely they will try to eliminate as many leaders as possible and make as many weapons disappear as they can. That's what the whole conflict will be focused on. And then at some point the population itself can well, regain power, but right now it's still complicated. There's what they call the nuclear option, so to speak. Now that everyone's talking about nuclear issues, the nuclear option, in quotes, not the Iranians. Today we'll explain the most likely option, which appears to be the main focus, but right now they're reporting that Iran is renewing its drone strikes, this time on various locations that have been targeted again. Today, March 2nd, let's get into the details of what's happening and what's going on. Also with the refinery of the largest oil refinery, by the way, on the planet, which has also been affected. Let's get into those details and let's talk and chat with everyone. Let's go. The largest refinery on the planet has been affected by Iranian forces. Let's discuss the details as the counteroffensive now targets oil tankers and the largest refinery. According to reports, it was drones that hit Ras Tanura and have also sunk an oil tanker. Not good for oil, that's why it might also have more negative reactions tomorrow possibly. Iran is expanding its regional counteroffensive, attacking the Ras Tanura refinery with drones. In Saudi Arabia, the most important energy complex on the planet. According to reports, this belongs to Saudi Aramco Oil with a capacity of over 500,000 barrels per day. Meanwhile, as they also say, this is the key piece in the global oil supply. The Saudi defenses reportedly intercepted many of the drones, but this one or these drones managed to get in. The parallel says the bomb boat exploded against the oil tanker, a bomb boat, like an explosive drone used by the Iranians. That also occurred in the Gulf of Oman, farther south, resulting in a crew member's death and raising maritime risk. The message is very clear. Iran is targeting energy infrastructure, and there's an analysis today from Newsweek. It's very interesting. They call this the nuclear option. Why? Because it's the option that can cause the most damage. Directly themselves. Going and having a direct conflict with the United States is practically impossible because of the distance, and with Israel it's also very unlikely. According to what Newsweek says, Iran, in these waves of attacks, is focusing on the energy sector. They know this is where they can cause the most problems, coordination between the Air Force and Navy. They are trying to shoot down all these threats that are targeting this oil area. Be careful, because if that starts happening, it's very likely that we will see attacks on Iranian oil areas. And this would be a very serious blow, because that's the only realistic option to sustain the regime. I mean, for them, not for the others. The oil. Without it, things get complicated. What if they start suddenly? Plus, everything is here, look. Or most of what the Iranians have is located on these islands. On those islands where they have much of their oil power, they're on these islands that the Iranians control. And look, then, if a problem comes up, if they start having attacks against Arabs, UFOs, and so on, well, the Arabs are going to do the same thing. And we're going to see how a conflict becomes much more problematic. I was getting into another island, but here it is. It's this area. It's just a tiny island. Look, here it is. It's to the north. They have these islands, but this is the one that's furthest north. Look, in fact, you can see it right there. If I get closer, it's full of fuel depots, oil, and so on. And here, this is the treasure of the Iranians. Yes. So, if this area starts to be, if the Arabs, the Iranians start to attack towards the United Arab Emirates, towards Saudi Arabia, towards Kuwait, well, easily. They have it right there. There's not much we can do about it. I mean, we are possibly going to see attacks on these places. I don't doubt other places will also claim to have this kind of fuel. The defense system has been monitoring advanced technology, they say, in order to detect where the Shaheds are. Although he also says some can still get through, especially those flying at low altitude. The offensive is taking place in an extremely tense regional context, according to reports. The self-protection protocols state that citizens must remain in protected areas until they receive official authorization to leave, in an attempt to minimize civilian casualties, according to Saudi Arabia. So, well, there it is, right? That's the next challenge, protecting the energy areas. Surely, right? That's what's going to happen with these countries, and we'll see how it goes, he says. Iran, he says, still has the nuclear option, right? Even though the attacks on the United States and Israelis will have decimated its leadership, says Matthew Tostesvin, who is the one making this analysis. He says approximately 1/5 of the oil and gas is transported through the Strait of Hormuz. Block or disrupt tanker traffic through the strait. It could deprive global oil markets of most or all shipments from 6 of the world's top 20 oil exporters. Gasoline prices in the United States could rise from $2.95 on Sunday afternoon to around $3 in April or May, according to reports. No, or this increase might happen. It's not much, but there could be a rise in the coming weeks, maybe by Easter, so to speak, right? Maybe a little later, maybe at the beginning of summer, maybe, right? And they say, well, within this, the price of oil could also be one of the most important factors. The price of oil, for example, Brent, went up by 13%, surpassing $82, although it has already dropped quite a bit. No, I mean, it did go up, yes, it went up to 80-something dollars. But, well, yes. Since this is so changeable, let's see, let's check. Yes, it went up to 80. Here we can see it. Let's see, it went up to 80. Wow, no, it didn't reach 80. At least here, I don't see it going up to 80. But look, let's see if I can put it up here on the screen. And well, almost, huh? Yes, it almost went up to 80. There it is, look, 79.8, so practically 80. And then from there, the price went down to 77. That's where it is right now. That's the price where this line is. Here it is. So yes, it is having an effect, but this can change at any moment, right? I mean, it depends on the type of attack. Meanwhile, there is already a reaction from the International Atomic Energy Agency because, well, yes, okay, everything's fine, but where is the uranium? Who is monitoring and handling Iran's uranium? It seemed like nobody, but actually, yes, someone is. Let's go with that. Look at how, well, I think the most relevant United Nations figure right now, no, he doesn't even show up anymore. The head of the World Health Organization, Antonio Guterres. Does anyone know about him? Does anyone know where Antonio Guterres is in all of this? Where is the Secretary General of the United Nations right now? Honestly, where is he? Does anyone know where he is? Yes, he sends statements and notices, but he should have been there on day one with multiple reassuring messages, not just one. Like, let's see, let's negotiate. Nothing. The United Nations, who knows where they are? The organization that is actually working so far is the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is a United Nations organization. I mean, we also have to acknowledge there are things that work, like this organization, which is in charge of nuclear risks and has shown some bias. A pretty interesting participation, I would say, even brave, because it's the one that has had to step up. Well, there are debates with Putin and with everyone, right? Rafael Grossi. The United Nations Atomic Agency stated that for now, as far as is known, there have been no attacks on nuclear sites. They are checking for radiation anywhere, and if there is any radiation, they have the ability to detect it through satellites. Yes, but nothing has been detected so far. Keep in mind, it's not that the International Atomic Energy Agency directly detects it, but rather there are different sources, satellites from multiple countries that provide them with the information. Since it's that organization, the United Nations Agency, what it is the representation of many countries. For example, Rafael Grossi is Argentine, but there are people from all over the world working there. As the director, I think he has done a good job, but that doesn't mean everything depends on him. It also depends on other actors and other collaborations. In this case, he assures that there are no indications of any damage to nuclear facilities so far. For example, the Bushehr plant, the research reactor in Tehran, and other nuclear facilities. So far, they have not been damaged or hit, and no radiation has been detected, according to the report. There was a meeting. These meetings take place in Vienna. That's where the International Atomic Energy Agency Board of Governors is, and that's where information is shared about what's happening. And that's where they find out. Well, they know if there's proof that there is radiation or not. Well, so far there isn't any. And that's good information, well, that those areas aren't being attacked. But he says that the situation is obviously highly concerning. Let's hope this essential communication channel can be established soon, either by talking or getting a direct line with the Iranians. Because the situation is complicated, obviously, he says, we can't rule out a possible radiological release with serious consequences. Including the need to evacuate areas as large or even larger than those of major cities, adds the same International Atomic Energy Agency General, the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency. In other words, as if to say, if there is a nuclear or atomic or radioactive leak, entire cities could even be evacuated. Just imagine, well, what happened in this city in the United States where there is talk of some shootings? No, this was in a nightclub in Cincinnati. Now it's being said that this could possibly be, well, an attack. No, and it's very likely that we're going to see suspicious operations or some shootings that will indeed be recognized as an attack. But hey, pay attention to what's happening. It doesn't matter. Yesterday, there was talk about a shooting at a musical event that left 9 people injured. Yeah, I mean, well, it's obviously being investigated, you know. The shooting took place at River Road Life in Cincinnati and left 9 people injured. According to what the police chief said, he did report that none of them are in serious condition, and it's still unknown if there are any arrests, right? I mean, that's the thing, right? It's not very clear. I'm sure they'll report it. That happened at the Riverfront Life nightclub, yes, located in the east end of Cincinnati. And right now, well, everything is kind of suspicious, like it could be some sort of situation related to what's happening in this area, right? What do we know? Well, just this. I mean, there were 9 people and luckily no one died. Right? That there's one person. Out of the 9 injured people, they're reporting that one of them would be, well, seriously injured, right? What is known? What's the latest that's been reported on this topic? Well, let's get into the details. Let's see what's being said. But from the beginning, there was talk about the possibility that this could be, well, something more. Now, in the case of Austin, it was very, very obvious. On this occasion, the attack happened at 1 in the morning. There were between 500 and 600 people who were at the disc jockey's birthday party, by the way. So, well, witnesses say that the first shots caused a moment of confusion followed by panic. People started screaming, there was smoke and so on. People were running, they didn't know what was happening. According to the police, there were multiple people who fired, right? There were 8 people wounded by gunfire, or rather 9 people wounded by gunfire. This happened near the University of Cincinnati. They were taken to Cincinnati Medical Center Hospital and others also to Good Samaritan Hospital. So far, no one has died. 6 of the 9 have already been discharged, and 2 remain hospitalized in stable condition, and apparently 1 is in serious condition. The responsible individuals remain at large. Their identities are unknown. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives confirmed that it has joined the investigation and is offering a $5,000 reward for information leading to arrests of the people who were firing their shots. The owner expressed that he is very sad about what happened and is asking for an investigation to analyze what happened. Thank you for watching the video. The same guest disc jockey also came out to say that he was very sorry about the incident and doesn't know exactly what happened. In this situation, we'll see if there are any other details later on. No, thank you. Let's move on to other important matters. I think we have more images. Let's see if they can be shown on the screen. This, an image that's being shared on Mundo en Conflicto on Twitter, and according to what they're reporting, it's this. It says, this is a missile launched on February 28th. According to what they're reporting, this has already been confirmed by international media. Described as one of those ballistic missiles, yes, a super heavy missile, it says, of a new generation. This was launched, they say, against a base over there in the United States, not within the Middle East. It's one of the big ones, let's say, things that are a bit stronger. Well, according to them, it's already confirmed. They say, well, even the same group, they ask, is this a lie? And the group replies, no, it's not a lie. In the context of the conflict, she specifies exactly what they believe it is, that it's a ballistic missile described as super heavy. The name of the missile, the type of missile that was launched, is not clear. Well, that's also one of the things that can start to show up, not surprises, so to speak. Weapons that are not so well known or that normally haven't been used on other occasions, that's also something to keep in mind. That's why... Let's move on to the next image. Well, this is also another one of the missiles, but these are missiles that can be seen during the day. Look at that. It's impressive that the plane was able to record it, right? It's also a commercial plane, supposedly. I insist, as you already know, not in wars. Suddenly it's complicated to get 100% certainty from the images, right? So we have to pay attention to that and try to, well, analyze them. And with caution. No, because no, how is this? We're not going in the one's eye, the camera. Let's see if Astrid can help us with that right now, because it doesn't reach here. But let's move on to other matters. Let's go to other important topics as well. Look, before I send a message... Let's move on to other matters, to other interesting topics as well. Alright, let's move on to other matters. Apparently, there's an attack on a nuclear zone. Speaking of which, let's first talk about two other points I have here. But is there already a report of a possible attack on a nuclear area? So let's get to that detail in a moment. Just allow me a couple of things first and then we'll move on to that topic. Thank you to the whole community, to Eliseo, to Benedicto, to Francisco Arce, to Fernando, to Draco, to Benedicto Bueno, to the entire community. Thank you so much for joining us. Go and give it a like. Please share it. Help us out with that. It really helps a lot. We're here daily to report every detail of world events. It's been a lot, so I appreciate it. Well, I'm sure they're reporting it. This is from The Guardian. In the Gulf of Oman and Bahrain, they report that 2 people lost their lives in drone attacks against oil tankers, the MKD, the Pion, and the Stena. Imperative, raising the alert regarding the energy issue. Well, that draws attention. Watch out for that. That's something The Guardian is reporting on. I think that's what they're going to start getting into more intensely. The oil sector is what we're going to see attacked the most now, they say. Look at what's happening. This is really important, this topic. Pay attention to what Lebanon is saying. The Lebanese president, Youssef Aoun, and the prime minister also had this meeting in which they reacted to what's happening. We have to remember that there are attacks happening inside Lebanon because Hezbollah started firing at Israel, so the institutional reaction of the Lebanese government was important. What did they say? What are they going to say? The Prime Minister of Lebanon, Nafan Salam, announced that the state, meaning the country, prohibits all military activity by the Shia group Hezbollah. And they will be forced to hand over their weapons. In other words, it's forbidden for them to have weapons from now on and forbidden for them to carry out attacks. According to the Lebanese minister himself, Nafan Salam, he announced that the state has already banned all that military activity and prohibits them from using any kind of weapons. According to the movement itself, the attack was in retaliation for what happened to Ali Khamenei. In other words, Hezbollah fired because of Khamenei's elimination. And what Lebanon says is, well, you can't be dragging us into a war. Israel responded by targeting the areas, the buildings belonging to Hezbollah. They warned the Lebanese population, saying they would attack specific locations. Stay 1 kilometer away from that area, and they give them about half an hour. They have to move. According to what the Prime Minister says, he was clear. Decisions about war and peace can only be made by the Lebanese state, not by armed militias. In other words, that's something that is up to the president or the state of Lebanon. That's really interesting, isn't it? The first phase of disarmament in border areas was declared successful, but Hezbollah refused to move forward with new stages, although the border area is already in theory out of danger. Well, they continue operating as they please like they always do, Hezbollah. So it's intense. He says the situation right now is delicate. If Hezbollah resists, the country could enter a kind of internal crisis where the Lebanese government would start attacking Hezbollah forces directly. That topic is also interesting. Let's talk about what happened in this attack, apparently a military zone. Give me a minute and we'll be right back in about a minute. Thank you. Thank you. Very good. Let's get to the information. Listen, there's a global alert. I'm talking about this topic. There's a global alert. This is due to an attack that reportedly took place in the Natanz area, as reported. Let's see. Is it being confirmed? Let's look at the details. What does the report say? But this is already spreading to the topic we just talked about. The attention is shifting back to the center of the board, according to the reports. This, according to what is claimed, Iran formally accuses the United States and Israel of an attack on a nuclear facility in Natanz. Is this Natanz? Is this among the most sensitive Iranian nuclear sites? It seemed inevitable an attack would happen eventually. They filed a complaint. It's in Natanz, going down. They show this area that was allegedly attacked, and they filed a complaint precisely with the International Atomic Energy Agency. The site in question is the Natanz nuclear facility, which is key for uranium enrichment in Iran. Natanz had already been a central target in the previous conflict between Iran and the United States last June, back in 2025, right? The OIA's international director assured there are no signs the nuclear facilities have been affected. The OIA says there are no signs that such an attack took place, although the Iranians insist that it did happen. The Natanz facility has the most advanced centrifuges used by the Iranians to enrich uranium. Yes, that's the area they apparently wanted to affect with that attack, which I insist was not confirmed. So for now, it's not clear whether it happened or not. The impact. It would be extremely important in the... Well, on this matter, no. What the United Nations agency says is clear. There are no signs of reactivity. Rafael Grossi himself mentioned it a few moments ago, and he was asked about that. The key is that there is independent verification if the United Nations Nuclear Agency maintains its position. It could be that they try to use, for example, information from a satellite to see or detect if there is any kind of reactivity. But for now, there isn't any. At least that's what the International Atomic Energy Agency says. That's what the United Nations Agency says. Now, which one is which? What's the problem here? Which one? Well, if the information isn't clear, if they insist, then they'll have to show evidence and they'll have to ask other independent parties to say, hey, check this area because apparently, well, there could be some reactivity. That's it. Iran would have to do it at the right time to determine if there's a real risk in that area of Natanz in the centrifuges. It could be because it's not known if the 440 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60% were there. It's not clear, and the International Atomic Energy Agency has raised this issue several times. They haven't been told where that uranium is so they can check it. To begin with, I mean, whoever doesn't have it says every gram of that uranium has to be inspected, it has to be seen. Because honestly, it could have been sold or used in many ways, right? So, what happened in Natanz, it's not clear, but supposedly there was an attack in the vicinity or in the area, let's say, where they have these nuclear centrifuges. What's the importance or why is this so interesting? Well, because if the most important nuclear protection organization in the world, which is the International Atomic Energy Agency, doesn't have the ability to observe, which I actually think it does. But that's what Iran is claiming, that they're saying there's a problem here and apparently they don't want to listen to them. Strategically for the Iranians, he is going to be key. This Natanz area is the one that would be under construction. It's where the most concerning progress by the Ayatollahs is happening, which is nuclear progress, right? Which has been the complete red line, that is the absolute red line. We can see from a distance where it is located to get an idea of where it would be, in which region of Iran. This place is very close to Tehran, right? I mean, relatively speaking, not exactly. In a straight line, it's a little over 300 kilometers from Tehran, from the capital, a bit more, but it's this area, there it is. That would be the place where supposedly Mr. would be. Attack has an importance on the geopolitical pressure board because Iran has used this area and this place as leverage. To, well, say I give information about where my program is and how it is, but, well, always little by little. And if they allow me to sell more oil, if they let me do this, if they let me do that, well, then I show them a little more. It wasn't always like that game. No, yes, but up until now, there's no certainty about what's happening there. So, well, let's wait for more details in a little while to see if we can find out what's going on. Meanwhile, the Swedish armed forces are confirming. Look at what's happening, huh? The Swedish armed forces confirmed that the drone, neutralized 13 kilometers from the French aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle in Malmö, came from a Russian intelligence ship, huh? Do you remember that we talked about this yesterday, about this drone? Well, they say it didn't come from Iran, it came from Russia. Let's go into the details of what is known about this case. But is Sweden also getting involved now and obviously also showing how this is escalating to other levels? The French aircraft carrier was almost at risk because of a drone. The Swedish armed forces confirmed a drone was neutralized about 13 kilometers from the aircraft carrier. The device was reportedly launched after the Russian intelligence ship, identified as Sigulevsk, while it was passing through the Oresund Strait, heading toward the Baltic and the entire area. There have been constant drone approaches, and on this occasion, a drone was reportedly shot down prior to this whole situation. So, wouldn't it really have anything to do with this? What they actually clarify is that in this strait, this area, is where they would have had the encounter, not this strait. Yes, sir. So what happens is that Sweden is the one that protects that region and, well, took care of destroying the drone. They haven't revealed what type of drone it is yet. The Swedish military said the flight was unauthorized and prompted immediate surveillance and countermeasures. The Swedish ship, Her Majesty's ship RAB, was deployed to monitor Russian navigation and detect drone launches in real time. The neutralization of the device was carried out under International Maritime Security Protocol, aiming to avoid risks to the French aircraft carrier. This, on one hand, and now the Charles de Gaulle, it's going to have this journey where it will travel, it's going to go around here, circle Gibraltar, so to speak, and head toward the Mediterranean. And it's going to position itself all the way over here. Aka. The French aircraft carrier is heading over there. They're also going to be operating, considering what's happening with Iran. But today, the issue of the aircraft carrier, the drone, which had already been discussed several days ago, is clarified over here. Let's move on to another topic. Well, while things are happening and we're seeing situations, we're also reading comments, right? How have you been? How are you doing? Thank you so much for joining us. To those who listen to us and watch us from different parts of the world, I appreciate it if you comment and tell us where you are. Not just which country you're watching from, but which city. That would be great. Let's say hello here to Fidel. How have you been? Verderi, Icon Render, Draco, who else? Patria, Benedicto, Emma, Armando, Daniel, Eliseo, the whole community, Francisco Arce, Fernando, everyone in the community who is with us. Thank you so much. Magali, how have you been in Dockles? Greetings, how have you been? All good? Who else is out there? Maggie, how have you been? Very good. Greetings. It's great to see you all. Jose Zarate, how have you been? Michaela, how have you been? Greetings, you're in California, California license. It's been a while and it's almost at 5. What a thing at $5. I don't know, I didn't get it. Michaela, greetings Omar, how have you been? Adelson, who else am I missing? Sarah Gonzalez, how have you been? Sarah Raul, well, to the whole community, hey, also do me a favor, please share and like. And to those who are encouraged to support the channel and get the membership, or, well, send a super chat. I thank you very much. Thank you so much for being part of this channel, for also being part of the community that can give that support. I know not everyone can, but I appreciate when you share or like it, right? That would also be very important, he says. Here, Rigoberto says, everything that's happening in the war, all of that was foreseen, and people should have. They should know this was expected. Rigoberto says, everything happening in countries near Iran. How are you, Rigoberto? Thank you, Aurelio. Greetings to New Mexico. How are you, Aurelio? He says that there are 3 United States planes shot down in Kuwait, supposedly by the United States itself, not by Kuwait. Yes, I already mentioned it, didn't I? I already mentioned it, or didn't I? No, yes, I already mentioned it. Yes, we already talked about it just a moment ago. You know, yes, it was friendly fire. The planes were flying in a defensive mode. I mean, those F-15S were stopping. What other planes were there? Other drones that were around there. Suddenly, the Kuwaiti defense system detected that they were there, right? For some reason, the protocol failed because there are security protocols that prevent friendly fire, but for some reason there was a mistake. Obviously, it's going to be investigated and there will probably be consequences for the person who made this wrong decision. But it sends data, and we should remember these are often devices likely sold by the United States. So they shoot y pues dañan. At the planes, they eject. There are 2 pilots in each one. Salen All the pilots survive, but obviously all 3 planes are lost. The authorities in Kuwait have already come out and said they are investigating and all pilots have been rescued. The people of Kuwait thought they were Iranians and were going against them. They arrived on time. The pilots also identified themselves quickly. And the story is that they saw they were from the United States. There was no more trouble because remember that Kuwait has issues with Iran and also with Iraq. By the way, so isn't there a bit of hostility? Greetings. Thank you very much, Padri. Thank you so much, Padri, for that super chat. I really appreciate it. And to the whole community that supports us, thank you very much. Digito, greetings to you too. How have you been? Great, Eliseo. How are you? How have you been? But you know, this situation really did happen. It was very much on Sunday. For me, how have you been, Leonardo? Thanks for joining us, and greetings to everyone watching from work. I know many of you are working and it's hard to comment, but I appreciate you being here with us. We're broadcasting live from northeastern Mexico and always bringing you international news, always keeping you informed about what's happening here on this side. Let me tell you that, well, despite what happened the other day with this situation in Mexico, and that no, obviously it's not. We can't say that it's completely resolved, but it has been very much under control. I don't know how they've managed it. Is it a mix between intelligence from Mexico and the United States or military intelligence? I don't know how the situation is, but it has seemed very much under control. Even though if you saw how things were starting to get out of control, how groups wanted to destabilize the situation. To such an extent that, for example, a world swimming event in Guerrero had been suspended. It had been suspended because they said it's unsafe and things like that. Days passed and things seemed much calmer, so they said, you know what? Well, the event is going to happen. They just changed the date, but the world diving event, I think that's what it is going to take place in Mexico. So that's also an interesting topic and a comment that someone made here, which unfortunately I've already lost. I'm not sure if they're watching. Adaso commented but didn't share it, and it was interesting. I mentioned it to Astrid yesterday about a sports journalist, I think, who was criticizing the person in charge of, I don't know which area of tennis sports. It was from an American media outlet that said, no, they shouldn't hold tennis events in Guerrero anymore because look at how things are in Mexico. Something like that, I don't know. And I asked her if he was going to say the same thing about Saudi Arabia, if he was going to ask for the World Cup to be cancelled right now. An Open that takes place over there in Saudi Arabia, in Dubai or somewhere around there, was he going to ask for it to be cancelled? Because of what's happening, obviously, well, he stayed quiet. Suddenly, well, yeah, there are a lot of things that sometimes just don't make much sense or have any logic. No, obviously, it's like if someone said, imagine when there are those, what do they call them, mass shootings, right, that suddenly happen in the United States. Imagine if we combined 2 or 3 of those and showed images saying they shouldn't host the World Cup because of how things are. Well, obviously, if you're going to look at it that way, if you're going to be searching for that, obviously, I insist there are still risky situations like in any part of the world that has problems with mafias and such, and let's hope that they keep controlling this situation well. Not until now. You've seen it yourselves. Networks don't appear instantly, but they start to spread. When there are problems, there's no way to hide them. There's no way they don't come out. They come to light and they come out and come out and come out. And so far, it's been pretty well controlled. Well, people have told me, for example, people from Tijuana who say to me, hey, even though Tijuana is a special situation because it's a border city and all that, and a big city that usually makes these kinds of things more complicated, it's actually been pretty well controlled. Several people from Tijuana are here. Maybe they'll update us on how things are there. I hope all is well, he says. In fact, the F-15 pilot suit doesn't have squadron patches, shields, or sectors, no names, no rank in case they're shot down, so they don't give out any information. From what I've been told, that makes sense, yes, I saw that it didn't have any kind of things on it. But it's also common with this kind of information, it's usually requested that faces aren't shown, that's usually asked for. For us, I mean, up until now, no one has ever said anything to us, but we try to be responsible about all of this. Obviously, especially considering that, well, this isn't a normal war, it's a war where, especially this kind of war, With countries that have had years, decades of terrorist attacks, they use, those kinds of things, those kinds of groups use them, countries that have radical groups to cause harm, to create problems. So sometimes you also have to be careful with that, says Beto. Actually, Beto, thank you very much for the information. Greetings. And supposedly, the Ayatollah posted a photo where you can see an intercontinental weapon that is said to be nuclear, says Draco. That's been the Ayatollah's narrative all along. To show a lot of strength, but when it really matters, well, we see what it is. No, it's not that it's a country without strength, not at all, but... Pero let's see. Has it been surprising how little reaction there's been, considering they eliminated Ejamin? Wait, so where was that big response? So... if there are images that have been confirmed, this one in particular, I don't know which one you're talking about, but about the bunkers, that's also been known for many years, that inside the mountains over there in Iran, there are certain missiles with a lot of power, like the one that was launched a little while ago. It was said that it was the one used to attack the base, but it's not confirmed whether it was that missile or not, but the report is there. And here we saw it from this satellite that the New York Times also shared. And it says, well, you can see that the base in Bahrain is destroyed. Basically, at least from what you can see there, the destruction looks very extensive, but you can't say for sure. Another thing is what it is now, whether there were people there or not, that's something they'll talk about later. But it does show that they can cause damage, that it can be dangerous, and that in one of those cases, well, they are. Up to now, attacks. Still, despite what was supposedly measured, supposedly there would be a bit more capabilities. For example, they talked about chemical weapons. For me, I'm more concerned, more than these giant missiles, I'm more concerned about the issue of chemical weapons. They could have this type of weapon because those are very harmful, because those can cause you a lot more problems. That and the part about the beautiful strait. I think those are the 2 points, like the hardest part they could have. In case they want to launch that kind of attack, now we're talking about a very delicate issue because it affects many countries. The risk for them is that if they do something like that, then they make more enemies. At that point, many more countries openly enter the conflict. So, right now, I imagine there's also some pressure from Russia, I imagine, to make sure things don't escalate further on their part. They might also say, because if things escalate to a level where Russia is also affected or the regime disappears, that's one of the possible outcomes, and yes, it would be a triple loss because it wouldn't be convenient for China or for Russia either. In the short term, yes, because oil prices could skyrocket and that would benefit Russia, not China, in that sense. Now, China has been able to negotiate with almost anyone. China negotiates with the United States, negotiates with Japan, and even negotiates with Taiwan. They don't get along, but they have many business, scientific, and other interactions. So, if there is they do have the ability to have those exchanges. Greetings, Jose. How is Raul? What's up? How have you all been? Is the little guy going to grow up? Hopefully not, that they keep studying that part, because in the end, it's something that benefits everyone. Greetings. How have you been, Cyber? How have you been? All good? Cybernator Jose Recinos, how are you? How have you been? All good, says Draco. Macron mentioned that using nuclear weapons is necessary. Yes, he's right in this message he gives about them having more nuclear weapons, he says. Let it be clear that if it's necessary, clarifying that if it's necessary means that if they are attacked with nuclear weapons, they would respond with nuclear weapons. Because there's this feeling or this idea that France wouldn't have the possibility to respond with nuclear weapons, even though they do have them. So, what does he have now? It's been like 2 or 3 years that Macron has had this kind of geopolitical campaign, so to speak, in which he wants to show a lot of strength outwardly to deter, he says. The only way to feel comfortable and at ease in your country is for others to see you as very strong. And what has happened is the opposite. I mean, in previous years, Europe has been seen as weakened, seen as lacking action, slow in its reactions and everything. So that's what Macron wants to show. That's what the German Chancellor wants to show. And even Starmer, I mean, this English Prime Minister who isn't from the political wing most involved in conflict. Well, he has also been very intense in his comments, not as much as Merz, but he has also been somewhat intense, he says. Yes, they don't even have running water or sewage, only in cities, but they do have the @ symbol. Well, it's just that too much was invested in war-related things, not too much was invested in that. And so they don't even have the basics. I mean, in many areas, they don't have the basics. So that's also a little problem, not a huge problem. That's also an important point. What you mentioned there. We'll keep watching what happens. If there's anything else to comment on, we'll talk about it. At this moment, and as I said, throughout the day, we keep updating what's happening, and we keep giving details. There's some information here about how an Iranian ship was destroyed. Let's get into the details. Let's talk about this. Notice that the United States has published this image in which they show how they destroyed an Iranian ship. That's the thermal image, right, that you can see showing the destruction of one of these ships. The thing is that we're seeing more and more movements toward the Strait of Hormuz, right? This area, and also in the Gulf of Oman, which according to this information, let's see if it's exactly in the Gulf of Oman. I mean, in this area that's right next to it. The Strait of Hormuz, here is the Persian Gulf, here is the Strait of Hormuz, which is this little part, and then there's the Gulf of Oman. If you remember, Oman is the country that has been, right? Well, trying to become like the Switzerland of Europe between Oman and Qatar. They haven't been trying to make the countries like hubs, not the ones that go. Both the United States and Iran can have dialogue there. But in the Gulf, in this area, one of these ships would have been destroyed there, according to what has been observed. Look here. Here I saw an image that I shared today. The ones from, what's it called? Newsweek. Yes, we were seeing this. Look, and I was also telling you about it there. This is the same strait, the Strait of Hormuz. Those little red dots are the ships. These oil tankers, if you notice, practically none of them are passing through. Maybe one or two here and there, some brave ones that go through here. But if you look, they're all piling up on the edges, some going for oil and others that want oil or are already loaded with oil. Which is the Strait of Hormuz? Just look, imagine this. This is Iran. And over here on this side, well, you see it's all Arabs, like Qatar, like here. I mean, all these countries. I mean, if we get closer here, this area, this region, if we measure it in kilometers from the farthest point, let's say from the farthest coast to this point here, around here, it's about 5,060 kilometers from this point around here. Let's say that in total, it's almost 80 kilometers or so. So they're basically a stone's throw away, as they say. I mean, they're relatively very close. And so these kinds of capabilities appear. We have to acknowledge that Iran, if it could have the ability to attack anything around there, now they also have it. At least that's what they say. They have a kind of underwater mines that they could place at all these points. Imagine if they suddenly decided to fill the entire area with mines. Let's say hundreds of mines, go ahead and try to cross. Let's see who dares. Well, no one will want to cross, and the mines are the same. They don't affect a small boat that much, or a fisherman, or someone just passing by. But they do affect the bigger ships, the oil tankers, so then the ships won't want to cross anymore. Of course, in that case, they would declare war on you, but instantly, all those countries in that case, all those countries would bring in their full force non-stop until they end the regime. I mean, that would be the nuclear button, so to speak. That would be the final point. I mean, the beginning of the end for the regime. Would this decision be like something the Joker would do? Wanting to watch the world burn, basically that would be really crazy. That's why they think that's not going to be possible, at least not right now. On a much bigger, more intense, more advanced level, let's move on to other important points as well. This is what Draco is talking about right now. Are there more details about what Macron has been saying regarding the use of nuclear weapons? I think it's been one of the things outside of the Iran issue. It's one of the most notable international news stories right now. Because of the moment when he says it, he says, "I will not hesitate to use nuclear weapons," and announces more warheads and a new strategic submarine. Let's get into all the details, but I'd like to play 40 seconds, well, 42 seconds, of a comment made by Macron. And then we'll get into the details because I haven't commented on all of them. I'd still like us to listen to a bit of the message that Macron gives. Let's listen to it.
I have made the firm decision to formally order a significant and strategic increase in the total number of nuclear warheads in our national defense arsenal to definitively dispel any kind of doubt or international speculation about our capability. We will no longer disclose the figures regarding our nuclear arsenal, unlike what was done before. As free people, we must be feared, and to be feared, we must be powerful. This increase in our arsenal reflects that approach. But to be powerful, and this is the second part of my speech, we have to be united, and I am going to talk about Europe.
You are as well. And well, what does Europe say and what does President Macron say about this? Well, he made a series of statements that have been the strongest of his entire term. Today was a special day for Macron. In that sense, the message was delivered at the strategic base, right where he was, at a strategic base called L'Île-et-Longue, which is the core of the French nuclear submarines. It certainly conveys a clearly military and deterrent message. Macron made it clear that the final decision on the use of atomic weapons rests exclusively with the President of the Republic. Reinforcing the centralized nature of the French nuclear doctrine, he announced an increase in the number of nuclear warheads. And he confirmed that France will stop publicly disclosing the exact number as part of a strategy of strategic opacity. In addition, he confirmed the construction of a new nuclear missile launching submarine, which will be named the Invincible. This submarine will be ready in 2036. The president warned about a more dangerous and unstable world with the risk of conflict on Europe's borders. He pointed out that there is a danger that current conflicts could cross the nuclear threshold, referring to the global context marked by tensions with Russia and the conflict in the Middle East. He said, countries like the United Kingdom, Germany, Poland, the Netherlands, Belgium, Greece, Sweden, and Denmark are already participating in what he called advanced deterrence, including detection infrastructure and joint exercises. He assured that the strategy will be compatible with NATO, thus avoiding a formal break in the Atlantic security framework. He recalled that each French nuclear submarine has a power equivalent to all the bombs dropped in Europe during World War II. Imagine such madness. Each French nuclear submarine, he says, has the power equivalent to all the bombs dropped across Europe during the entire Second World War. He says that, multiplied by 1,000 compared to the new or the first atomic bombs, it's madness, but well, that's what he boasts about. Now the message redefines the scope of France's vital interests, which according to Macron are not limited to the national territory, but include the stability of the European continent. So he's talking about protection for Europe, that's the detail, also very interesting. That's what I was thinking in the context of what's happening right now, which might not be related to the issue with Iran, but at the same time, yes, kind of yes, but also no. It says 2036 Back to the Future. The interesting detail, the also very interesting detail, also very interesting detail, the also very interesting detail. And I already have a section of everything you all have recommended to me that I haven't seen, of what I haven't seen, what I've already seen. Well, I don't write it down, but what I haven't seen, I have a section of 10 movies and series that have to do with time travel. So, well, I'll watch them and I'll recommend them if I like them. Like Primer, The Chrono Crimes, Beyond, The Infinite 2 Minutes, Steins Gate, November 22nd, 1963. Which is a series reminiscent of Young People in Orbit, Battleness, something like that. Shall Huan Better Than Us, which I think is Russian. That one is also about time travel. I didn't know that. Yeah, I don't know why I put that one. It's just that I organized them by categories. I also have dystopias, futures, some really crazy ones here. I have others that are more drama, others that are horror, others that are action, others that are curses, others that I don't even know what they are. I haven't looked into what they are. This one, The Handmaid's Tale, catches my attention. They say it's really good. I haven't seen it. Yeah, it's fiction too, I think. Let's see how it is, right? That's the first one too. It really catches my attention. It's been highly recommended to me. They say it's kind of crazy, but I mentioned them just in case anyone wants to. I want to write them down there, or if you want to check them out, right? Yesterday, we also finished the season of The Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Is the series good? Well, if you're fans of Game of Thrones, you're obviously going to like it. Abrelio, how are you? Can you believe those people want to split the world? What's the point of all that strength and power? Yeah, it's intense. Greetings, Cybernator, Eliseo, Dieguito, Nicole, and Franco. How have you been? Awesome. A big shout out. Thank you so much for joining us, for being here for a bit during the live stream. And well, later on, we'll keep you updated. Hey, if you're just getting here and haven't done anything yet, haven't commented, leave us a comment. Let us know what you're up to here. I know not everyone can, but at least say hi so we know you're here. It would be really appreciated, right? And I mean, where do you think all of this is going? Where do you think this is headed? Is it the end of the Ayatollah's regime? Is the regime already over? I mean, is it on its way out or not? That's the big question here. Aren't there many who still think the regime is far from ending? I mean, that they still see it as strong? Despite what's happened, I'm not so sure they're that strong, but they've boasted about their strength for such a long time. It turned out their claimed strength didn't exist. Or at least up until now, it hasn't been seen, right? And what's coming out right now, they're saying that another big wave of attacks is coming. In fact, pay attention to this, okay? Let's go to the report. Let's see, I'm sure it's being reported right now. Donald Trump is talking about the possibility, pay attention, of having United States troops inside Iran, okay? Inside Iran, be careful with that because this could take a very different turn, one that probably many people, especially those from Make America Great Again, won't agree with. Because, well, those were the reasons why they voted for Trump, because supposedly he wasn't going to go to war with boots on the ground, as they call it, meaning troops inside. First of all, let's get into the details. Donald Trump is announcing right now a major wave of attacks, and the region, he says, is entering a zone of maximum energy and military risk. Is Trump saying this right now? Tension between the United States and Iran is reaching a critical level. After the new statements from President Donald Trump, who assured that the big wave of attacks is still to come and that he does not rule out using ground troops, Donald Trump states that they are already hitting Iran very hard, but warns that the offensive will continue. Now they're talking about 5 weeks, maybe even more. He's been going up and up there. According to a high-ranking commander of the Revolutionary Guard, Amanas from Iran, they're going to set fire to any ship that crosses the Strait of Hormuz. Watch out for that, okay? A high-ranking commander of the Revolutionary Guard has said they're going to set fire to any ship that passes through here. Be careful with that. That's why, says Donald Trump, there's maximum, what did he call it? What did he say? The maximum energy and military risk. Yes, what's happening here? Maximum energy and military risk. It means that those who are here won't be able to leave, and those who are outside won't be able to enter, according to what they're saying. The warning includes attacks on the regional viaduct and the promise to prevent even a single drop of oil from leaving the Persian Gulf. That's what's happening. Well, obviously that's going to drive prices up even more. Let's see if there's any reaction in the oil market. Look, it's already going up again. Watch out, because this happens fast. This is fast. Remember how oil prices were going down again and now they're recovering a bit? Well, no, it's going up again. Watch out, it's going up again. It did this and then it did this up to here, right? It did this, then this, and then this, and now it's going up again. It's already at 78 with 75. When we went live, it was at $77. Now it's heading to almost 79, heading to 80. This is the price of oil shooting up. Let's see. Let's quickly check gold now. Not gold. Gold keeps rising, already close to the all-time high, although not as strongly. Here, I still don't see that much strength because it's this wick, this thin line. They call it a wick, right? When there's a wick, it shows weakness, it shows skill. Unlike oil, where is the biggest wick? Below or above? Well, below, yes. So, very likely. We're seeing that there's more strength from people buying oil out of nervousness. So watch out for that. Or the dollar, which keeps going up, okay? The warning includes attacks on regional products and the promise that oil won't pass through the Persian Gulf. Reports indicate that an oil tanker stopped in the strait after an alleged Iranian attack. Meanwhile, refineries in Saudi Arabia and energy fields in Israel and Kurdistan are experiencing disruptions. Attention, we didn't have that issue in Kurdistan until now. This is also happening in Kurdistan. Update. What did they experience at this moment? Disruptions caused by Iranian drones? Attention, energy fields in Israel, energy fields in Kurdistan, and more? The refineries in Saudi Arabia have had pauses or interruptions because of drones. It's not that they are stopped, but they have had interruptions. The United States Central Command stated that the Iranian naval presence in the Gulf of Oman has been reduced to zero. Look how tough it is, he says. I mean, the United States Central Command. That there is no longer any force in the Gulf of Oman. There is nothing left. That's what they say. Right now they say that military control is immediate throughout the entire maritime area of the Gulf of Oman. I mean, going back to where they destroyed an oil tanker, a ship. That's a destroyer we showed at the beginning. Yes, right there in that area, this destroyer that was destroyed. That information has been declassified. That's an Iranian ship destroyed in the Gulf of Oman. They were showing that a moment ago. Well, that's what they say. There isn't a single military ship left in Oman, not a single Iranian military ship in Oman. They're all destroyed. That's what the United States CEDCOM reports here, says the White House. They report that dozens of Iranian leaders may have been eliminated in the initial attacks, including, well, they're just summarizing all the leaders. Well, in which they also claim that the Quds Force promised global retaliation, stating that those responsible will not be safe even inside their homes, raising the risk of attacks. Note, outside the Middle East, that's something they must be reviewing as well. Obviously, it's also important. The International Atomic Energy Agency indicated that it has no conclusive evidence of reactor damage. They're already summarizing what was said, including the International Atomic Energy Agency, so we'll discuss that shortly. But the focus is going to be on energy. Clearly, that's not where Aragachi is headed. By the way, the Iranian foreign minister claims that Iran could attack United States troops inside regional hotels, in hotels. That's what I'm telling you, that they are starting to operate more like a terrorist group and not so much by the rules of war. No, there don't seem to be any rules, let's say, in that sense. And meanwhile, images keep appearing of Iranians chanting, "Long live the king, bring back Chano," that's been really intense. The Washington Post reports that the attack on Iranian checkpoints in Bahrain also injured several Americans. Well, there's also an analysis being done on who could be the successor to Ali Khamenei, but we'll talk about that later so we can review the information properly. That's what's being discussed there. But it could be that today we already know who the next supreme leader will be, right? Here's the image, look, from the meeting of the truth. I mean, I don't know if it's been updated or not, but apparently it's at the International Atomic Energy Agency meeting in Vienna. Yes, supposedly this would be the image. I mean, now I have everything, supposedly, because with information moving so fast, sometimes it's hard, right? But the Atomic Control Organization shows today, Monday, this meeting in which they claim to have reviewed all the information from the different governors, or that all the leaders within the OIA, the Organization to Prevent Atomic Risks in the World, are called that, stating that there is no information that can prove there is an atomic or nuclear risk at this moment. Inside Iran, as Iran is claiming that supposedly there is an attack on a nuclear plant, something that so far they say there is no evidence of. Well then, well, greetings to everyone out there. Who's here with me? Danilo, how have you been? Greetings. Please send it to me by email or on Telegram. Yes, I'll give you my email so you can check it out and connect with the community. The email that appears there on the channel, that's my email, so you can send it there perfectly. Thank you. It's not Jose Arroba. I'm not sure if I wrote it correctly. Just Jose Arroba, Pepe and Vivo. But it's Pepe, just like it appears there. That's how it is, right? There it is. Danilo, I appreciate you not sending it. Likewise, for the community that wants to stay in touch, they can also do it through there, on Telegram. You can leave us voice messages to comment on something happening immediately, right? So, well, greetings, Jalal. How are you? Hopefully, a big hello. Who else is here? Thank you to everyone in the community for your support and messages. Big hugs to all who joined us. A super chat, well, we really appreciate those who have also given us a thumbs up. So, thank you very much for supporting us that way too. See you in a bit. Later, we'll be back with more information about what's happening in the world.